So the following question is the question on cross-country times, and it's divided into 4 sections. So first of all, we have to start with part A, which is to determine the mean time taken by the students to run the cross-country. So to determine the mean time taken by the students to run the cross-country, we first need to simplify the grouped distribution data from timeframes to an actual whole number. We do this by determining a midpoint. To calculate the midpoint of each time section, we find the halfway point between the first time and the second time. So for the first midpoint, we find what comes halfway between 20 and 22, which is a Year 9 question, can easily be solved to be 21. We write this answer into our third column and then continue this same process for each section until we have all 7 midpoints. Since each of the times only differ by the same number of 2, we know our midpoints are 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, and 33. Once we have the midpoints, we then need to multiply these data values by the frequency of each time. For the first section, we multiply our first midpoint, which we found as 21, by its frequency 2. A simple multiplication of 21 times 2 gives us an answer of 42. So we can then write this down in the third column and proceed to answer the rest of the ones. With the assistance of a calculator if necessary, we can then solve the remainder of the multiplications to obtain all our frequency distribution values. Once we find all the values, we get the sum of them all. Using the total of all the values we just found and the total values of all the frequencies, we can then find the mean time by performing a simple division. The division is the sum of our frequency times distribution values column over the sum of all of our frequency values. This leaves us with 1,818 divided by 70, and a final answer of approximately 26 minutes. Now that we have solved part A, we can now move on to part B of the question, which is to sketch a histogram from the data values given. As we have the time and frequency values of the data, we are able to sketch the histogram. So to sketch the histogram, the Year 9 students will need to draw upon their knowledge on histograms by including the main elements of one. These include sketching the graph lines first. So they'll want to draw a reasonable size graph so they can fit all their data on. Then they will label the X and Y axes, making sure they draw the arrows on the end of the lines and labeling the right axes. So what they'll do next is add in the X and Y values using the increments of their choice. So for this question, I went up in ones, and this allowed me to represent the whole graph on the histogram. The next part is sketching the histogram value. So this is actually drawing in our bars of the actual histogram, making sure there is a gap before the first bar and after the last line. And then next is finally labeling all the axes with titles such as time, brackets minutes, frequency, and the main title as frequency of cross-country times. To gain the full marks of this question, students will have to identify the pattern that emerges from the data, which in this case is right skewed. So part C of this question is a worded problem question, and it asks us if 5 students did not complete the race in time, how would this affect the mean times taken? So if 5 students did not complete the race fast enough, we know that their times must be slower than the cutoff mark at 34 minutes. So if these potential outliers were to be added to the data, they would be slower than 34 minutes and would therefore slow down the time of the mean taken to complete the cross-country race. It would be a statement like this, or an answer like this, that would be looking from the students to gain full marks. So the final part of this question, part D, is also a worded problem, with the question asking, how might we include these 5 students' times in the data to include them on the histogram? So we know that the 5 times are slower than 34 minutes. However, we do not know their actual time since they did not finish. So an easy way to include this in the data is creating a new time category of 34 plus minutes. So since there was 5 students that ran in 34 plus minutes, we can then set the time parameter to 34 plus minutes and set the frequency to 5. So this could be a new row added in our data. So then to include this in the histogram, we then put it on the very right on our x-axis and then label it as 34 plus minutes, and we'll draw our graph and added onto the histogram. So that's now all 4 parts of the question completed. So therefore our cross-country question is now finished.